Merlin, the most powerful but laziest demon king, is forced to retire from his throne to pay off his vast debts and relocates to the human continent. Running away from his responsibilities, he conceals his true abilities, posing as an ordinary loser, and becomes known as the town's most notorious freeloader. Merlin Lucifer, our protagonist, is currently preparing the weekly report when an unannounced army of human warriors, known as the Church Squad, battles his demon soldiers right outside his palace. Lilith, Merlin's younger sister, arrives there to deal with the situation, using her dark charm magic to confuse and force her foes to fight. However, a single human soldier possesses an unbreakable will and completely resists her magic. She charges directly at Lilith, overwhelming her without hesitation. This woman is Alice, the Land of Light's 233rd hero. Lilith, astonished, understands that her charm magic was ineffective because her opponent is a woman. So Lilith takes a more direct approach, jokingly attempting to entice Alice by saying that she wants her in her figurine collection. But before she can get far, Alice unsheathes her sword and confronts her in a full-fledged battle. However, Lilith is the only one who scores a hit, making her realize that this generation's hero is nothing exceptional and very average. Her remark incites Alice, who responds by unleashing the full power of her holy sword. Lilith, however, does not take her seriously and attacks the holy sword with her dragon tendons-infused hair, only to have it torn apart in an instant, demonstrating how dangerous the holy sword truly is. Alice quickly mounts Lilith and uses her magical abilities to imprison her hands and legs. Following Lilith's fall, the human warriors celebrate their success by shouting in unison, which reaches Merlin's ears. At that moment, he finally snaps, tossing aside his paperwork to handle the disturbance. Meanwhile, with one enemy down, Alice gains the confidence to challenge the Demon King. She turns to the leader of their squad, the Grand Sage, asking for permission to march toward Merlin's palace, but the Grand Sage insists that he himself will be the one to eliminate the Demon King, who has killed countless human soldiers and heroes over the years and is the reason why their crusades failed every single time. He then displays his greatest weapon, a siege machine shaped like a whale, an unfathomable force the Church has been crafting for a century. The Grand Sage proudly says that this whale is the apex of human understanding and technological achievement, really the Church's finest accomplishment. He sends the whale down from the heavens, instructing it to destroy everything in its path. Alice opposes, claiming that they do not need to stoop to such drastic methods, but the Grand Sage is adamant. He's committed to exterminate all demons, feeling it's the warrior's great purpose. He activates the whale, and its gigantic mouth opens to send a devastating holy plasma beam at the demon troops, intent on turning them to ash with a single hit. At that precise time, Merlin Lucifer comes forward, putting himself in front of his soldiers and effortlessly sheltering them from the attack while remaining unharmed. He farms Samora by pulling his hair back, then steps onto the battlefield, landing right on top of Alice's head. That's some serious disrespect. Lilith quickly embraces her brother, screaming about how these horrible humans have tormented her, while Alice, still imprisoned under his legs, tries to get out. Alice eventually makes it out and begins to complain, but Merlin completely ignores her and instead asks Lilith who this blabbermouth is. Lilith responds, calling her a garbage-tier hero dispatched by the monarchy to track them down. Merlin sprints near Alice to take a closer look at her gorgeous face, offers her a short smile, and then nonchalantly sends her flying with a flick of his fingers. He mockingly comments that the Land of Light is growing sloppy with choosing their heroes, since he no longer needs to draw his sword to vanquish them. The only thing that impresses him is the whale above, and he hopes that it will alleviate the anguish of his curse for at least 2 days. Meanwhile, the Grand Sage approaches Merlin and informs him that he has come to avenge the humiliation suffered during the previous crusade. However, Merlin has no recollection of the event or who this old man is. The Grand Sage tries to revive his memory, claiming to be the only human that survived their last war and viewing it as a tremendous accomplishment. Merlin finally remembers and asks if he is the same coward who wet his pants and begged for his life, promising that if Merlin spared him, he would send more people as a present to help him improve his performance as a demon king. Hearing this, the hero and the rest of the men are taken aback, unable to believe that their captain would fall so low and even try to sell them off. The Grand Sage disputes the accusation outright, calling Merlin a liar while stuttering. In a desperate attempt to silence him, he summons all of his soldiers, gathers all of their magical energy, and transfers it to the whale, increasing its power 1,000-fold. But Merlin still doesn't think it's enough to bend even one strand of his hair. Before the whale can attack, he draws his black blade and, with a single slice, crushes the entire thing to rubble, fully destroying the Grand Sage's plot. Realizing his defeat, the old man falls to his knees again, this time clinging to Merlin's feet, begging for his life and blaming everything on Alice, alleging that it was her idea to assault in the first place. At that point, a bell rings from the castle, reminding Merlin that it is time for the weekly meeting of the 7 Demon Kings, and he must deliver his weekly report. The knowledge strikes him hard. He starts ripping his hair in terror and flees back to the castle because he hasn't written a single word, leaving his adversaries absolutely stunned at how the most terrifying Demon King is afraid of paperwork. Alice tries to stop him in the middle of the conflict, telling him that they are still fighting. So Merlin ends it right there with another sword slice, annihilating all of the humans except Alice, who barely manages to protect herself. Back at the castle, Merlin attends a conference with the other Demon Kings, who are well aware that he has made no effort toward developing the Land of Darkness, no profit, no progress, and clearly no report. Merlin tries to justify himself, claiming that he has just beaten a whole army of humans, a big flying whale, and has been doing actual work. But nobody cares. They want numbers and profits because the palace requires money to operate, not dead bodies. They show him how much the other Demon Kings have given, emphasizing how little Merlin has done in comparison to them. They call him the worst Demon King in history, plan to decrease his next week's budget, and taunt him until he snaps. Merlin tells them that he is the one who has fought millions of adversaries, guarded the first palace alone, and protected the other 6 weaker Demon Kings for all these years. He believes that is an accomplishment that no one else can match, and tells them to cease questioning him. However, the others continue to disagree, pointing out the huge damage he causes every time he enters the battlefield. One of the Demon Kings, the ruler of lust, takes out a large list of all the harm Merlin has caused, damaging the palace 168 times, wrecking infrastructure, and breaking battlefield pipes over 31,000 times, and discloses that as a result, his wage has been halved. Even worse, he owes the kingdom a staggering $66 trillion. This debt explains why, despite being the strongest, Merlin was terrified before. He cannot run or resign. He must strive to repay the loan. After a disastrous encounter, Merlin decides to go. He intends to flee the Demon King's palace forever to escape his obligation, sneaking out discreetly until Lilith emerges behind him and terrifies him half to death. He tells Lilith about his magnificent scheme, expecting that once he leaves, the others would realize how much they rely on him and beg for his return. He even starts giggling, picturing his triumphant return. Lilith, however, believes he was sacked. But Merlin swears he resigned to repair his cursed heart, which allegedly continues shrinking. While the curse is real, this person is definitely inventing an excuse. Apparently, the only thing that briefly alleviates the pain is defeating powerful opponents. He states that he would now tour the world, hunting for the most powerful rivals in order to finally break the curse. Lilith buys the narrative but refuses to let him go, knowing that her brother will not last a day in the outside world because he is incapable of doing anything other than fighting. As she continues to beg that he stay, he discloses that he owes the other Demon Kings $66 trillion and will have to work himself to death to repay it if he stays any longer. When Lilith hears this, she immediately changes her mind and sends him away, urging him to find a new job and return only after they have earned enough money to pay off their debt. Meanwhile, back on the battlefield, Alice tries to act dead to avoid being observed by Lilith, who is casually walking around. I mean, Alice is the only one left on the battlefield, as the others have been reduced to ruins, so Lilith will undoubtedly notice her. And Lilith does, but she assumes Alice is dead and mutters about how unfortunate it is that a beautiful face like hers had to die so young. She considers transporting Alice's body back to the palace to keep her as part of her figurine collection, but moving her with all of that armor would be difficult. Instead, she chooses to simply take her head. However, the moment she attempts to incapacitate her, Alice flinches and moves away. Lilith bursts out laughing, revealing that she knew Alice was only pretending. Lilith has had enough of joking this time, and she wants to punish Alice for embarrassing her in front of her brother. Alice flees, knowing she has no chance of survival. Lilith, who enjoys a good cat-and-mouse game, summons two wolves to track down the cute little mouse. Meanwhile, Merlin has reached the coast. To escape the demon continent, he must cross the demon sea. He thinks he's in luck when he notices the Grand Sage's army's leftover boats in the distance. But when he arrives to the docks, every single boat has been entirely demolished, and he realizes that the same slash he used to eliminate his enemies earlier also destroyed the ships. Unfortunately, demons cannot swim, even if there is the ability to walk underwater, leaving Merlin entirely trapped and wondering how he would ever get out of this situation. He owns a tiny boat, but rowing it across the water is too much work for him. Alice comes rushing, still being pursued by the wolves. Realizing that death is close, she recalls her master's words. They had always urged her not to become a hero since she was still too weak to stand a chance against non-human soldiers. Alice ignored her boss because she wanted to become renowned. Furthermore, residing with her lord in barren snow mountains convinced her that she would never meet the prince of her fantasies. Only now does she realize that her teacher was correct. This world is far too terrible. She prays to the gods to let her live just once, pledging that she'll only venture out again after improving her talents. She finally manages to gather enough strength to defeat one of the wolves, but the other transforms into its actual demon form and completely overwhelms her. On the approach of death, she begs for mercy, crying about how she wants to fall in love and have kids before dying. That's when her unlikely savior, Merlin, descends from the heavens and nonchalantly converts the demon wolf into a harmless little puppy. He looks at Alice and comes up with a diabolical notion to make her his slave so that he may get free manual work. He reminds Alice, calling her a half-baked hero, that because he has saved her life twice, she now belongs to him and must repay her debt by becoming his slave. Before she can respond, he snatches her and takes her to the small rowing boat from before, intending to use her as a paddle engine to cross the demon sea because he's too lazy to do so himself. Why did everything have to turn out like this? Alice was expected to battle the evil demon king, achieve glory, and marry a gorgeous prince. This quest was intended to lead to her holding on to her lovely prince, but instead she is holding on to a wooden paddle. Meanwhile, Merlin, with nothing else to do, strikes a posture and exudes an agricultural vibe. He advises Alice that she should consider her situation as his slave a blessing. But Alice tells herself that this so-called blessing comes with no remuneration and no leisure time. In any case, she continues to row the boat and promises to repay him 1,000-fold once they arrive in her nation. She uses her wrath to row the boat quickly, but even in the tossing waves, Merlin stands solid until she notices he has pushed his foot against the boat to keep his balance. LOL. The day rolls to night, and Alice feels fatigued from rowing non-stop. Merlin, on the other hand, pulls out a burner from somewhere and prepares a lovely, steaming lunch for himself. While smelling the food, he asks Alice why she stopped rowing, labeling her the most ineffective hero he's ever witnessed. Alice can no longer believe this guy. Her patience has run out, and she throws the paddle at him, claiming she has quit. To bring her back to work, Merlin offers to share his food, and while Alice's ego first prevents her from agreeing, when her stomach begins to grumble, she caves in and eats it. She finds it so wonderful that she begins referring to Merlin as her master and bursts into tears, saying that she has no backbone. Thank you for watching up to this point. If you want part 2, remember to like and subscribe.